Hello, hello, and welcome to your first video for Soul Guided Book Club. This is the #1 takeaway from The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. So in this video, we'll consider this a short study guide on some powerful takeaways from chapter 1. I do have a few more to cover from chapter 1, but I wanted to make sure that these were bite-sized, that these were really just covering a couple of relevant concepts for each video. So in this video, what he does is he starts out by sharing a really powerful analogy. And that analogy is the idea of this beggar sitting on a box, and he's asking for spare change of people as they come by. And then this stranger walks by and says, "Well, I don't have any change to give you, but what's in that box that you're sitting on?" And the beggar says, "Well, nothing." Now the stranger says, "Have you ever looked?" So the stranger and the beggar look into the box and open it up. And of course, as you can imagine, there's treasure unbeknownst to the beggar that has been sitting in this box that he was sitting on this entire time. And so, of course, the analogy is that we are like the beggar, and Eckhart Tolle is like this stranger that's come to tell us that, hey, we've been seeking without, we've been seeking in the external for scraps of affection, of validation, of feeling worthy and loved. And yet, within ourselves, we have access to these treasures that we've never even realized. So that's really a powerful way to set the stage for this book, is we have this treasure within that we can access. All we need to do is open it up. And this book, you can consider the instructions for how to do that. So this book is really the instruction manual or the roadmap to enlightenment. And our mind likes to think of enlightenment as this really complex thing, this unattainable state. In fact, to hear an average person speak of it might even be considered sort of absurd. Enlightenment, like that's for the Buddha, that's for people who go to live in an ashram or up on a mountaintop somewhere, maybe in a monastery. That's not for us. But of course, that's another trick that our mind plays on us. And we're going to chat a lot about the tricks that the mind plays. So the way that he describes enlightenment is felt oneness with being. When you're in a state of enlightenment, you feel a sense of felt oneness with simply being. It's the one life beyond form and name. It will give you a radiant joy and an unspeakable peace when you can access this state of oneness with simply being. It goes beyond the self, and so it's not a selfish state, but it's also something that can be felt deep within. It's the state of love, unity, connection, wholeness, and it can be felt, but it can't be understood with the mind. So that's one reason that Eckhart Tolle uses the term being and not something like God, goddess, universe, because all of those come with constructs about what they are. But being, even though it doesn't necessarily explain exactly what it means, because again, we can't understand it with our minds anyways, but at least it has the value that it's an open concept. It's not something that we bring all of these preconditioned ideas to. But unfortunately, the truth is that most of us do not live in this place, do not live in a sense of felt oneness with being. Where most of us live is in a state of isolation, fragmentation, separateness, fear, feeling the chaos and uncontrollable nature of our day-to-day lives. That's where most of us spend 99% of our day. Maybe 90%, maybe 80% if you're pretty good. And all of that derives from mind identification. When we identify with our mind, when we derive our sense of self from our mental thoughts, well, then that's when our thought becomes compulsive, we become addicted to it, and that's what prevents us from accessing the joy of being. That's what prevents us from accessing this state of enlightenment that he speaks of. And this is what creates the pain and suffering that we feel. So think about that. Think about how often your mind becomes your own worst enemy. I mean, myself, I can think of that easily, where when I'm in work situations and I get frustrated with someone and I start to think these mental thoughts about that person, that situation. I think about when I have a whole plan in my mind about how something should go, and then it doesn't go that way. And then my thoughts are here and there and everywhere about why this isn't going according to plan. And of course, we all experience this in relationships. We can experience it when it comes to our bodies or the way we look, the way we come across in the world. We have so many preconceptions. And yet, if we think about the source of all these problems, it's our mind. Now, what Eckhart Tolle says is the mind itself, it's not bad, but what happens is the mind should be a tool. We use the mind and pick it up. That's where we want to be, in a place where when we need our mind for practical purposes, then we can pick it up. We can think thoughts, we can process, and we can do all of the complex tasks with our mind that we need it for. But then when we don't need it anymore, we can set it down. And the truth is, most of us cannot set our minds down. Most of us cannot simply stop thinking a thought as it arises. Oftentimes, if you have that thought arise, if you're late and you're stuck in traffic and you're thinking, what is this person going to think of me? How easy is it to put down that thought and simply be present? It's not very easy, right? So the mind is a tool, and yet the tool has taken us over. What Eckhart Tolle says is that our mind is like a dog chewing a bone. The mind likes to solve problems just like a dog likes to chew a bone. And that points to the compulsive nature of it. These thoughts are compulsive. They take us out of the present moment. And the now, or the present moment, is really the only place that we can truly feel alive, that we can feel that sense of felt oneness with being. When we are in the present moment, when we're in a state of acceptance for what is, and truly aware of the present moment, without going into past, future, what's wrong, well, then that's when we can enter a state of enlightenment. That's when we can experience the felt oneness with being, the peace, the joy, the unity, the wholeness that derives from that. But the mind gets in the way of that. The incessant chatter of the mind is what prevents us from being truly still and being truly at one with the present and in that felt sense of being. And I pointed to it a little bit. There are three main ways that the mind does this. One is we focus on the past. Two is we focus on the future. Three is we focus on what's wrong or what we don't like about this situation. Our mind likes to focus on the past because that's what gives us our sense of identity. And oftentimes the past will condition our perception of the present. If things have gone a certain way in the past, then that's how we think the present's going to be. Our mind likes to think about the future because that's what gives us fulfillment, this hope, this sense of, well, one day when I get this thing done, when I achieve this, when I solve this problem, then I'm going to be fulfilled. Then I'm going to be happy. Or alternately, sometimes the present may give us a sense of anxiety and dread, but it still gives our mind a problem to solve. Because that's what our mind likes. Our mind likes a problem to solve because we want to find a problem to solve instead of remaining at peace. That's why you can say that the mind has taken you over. Tolle says that we can see that we're essentially addicted to thinking. And it's easy to tell that he's correct on that because what characterizes an addiction is that it's compulsive. You no longer feel you have control over it. And what pleasure you once got from it is less and less as you go further. And so it's funny because I actually was just on my Facebook earlier today, and a woman posted about the way that we women can sometimes get together And oh, we just love to chat about our menfolk and say like, well, this is something he did and that's something he did wrong and we got into this fight. And even if the relationship is good, we can be here and there and everywhere talking about what we don't like about our current relationship. That's almost that sense of addiction because, of course, if we were to get together and say, well, things are good. I mean, girl, what would we even talk about? I don't know. But as long as we keep allowing our minds to carry on this way, we're not going to be able to experience the joy and the fulfillment of being that Eckhart says is possible. So we've talked about a few things. We've talked about the desired state, that felt oneness with being, that sense of peace, ease, flow, oneness that we can achieve, but only by letting go of the mind. And that, in fact, is what's in the way of us achieving that, is all of this mind chatter that we're addicted to, the compulsive mind that we're identified with, that we've made an identity out of, that we perceive the future as this state of fulfillment, that we're always looking in the present and finding what's wrong, what makes me unhappy, what problem can I solve. So that's what's in the way of achieving this state of fulfillment or this state of inner peace that he says is possible. That begs the question, how? How do we let go of the compulsive mind? How do we achieve this state? How do we overcome this dilemma that we're in? How do we go beyond the mind? Well, there's 3 ways that we can do this, and they're very simple. So that's what we'll start with in this video. The first way is essentially to watch our thoughts, but not from a place of identifying with them, not resisting them or judging them, because of course that creates its own trap, but simply watching them, noticing them, and noticing the gap between our thoughts. So we can start to watch and witness, especially these chronic dialogues that often come up. Maybe we have a complaint about somebody or a certain time of day when we can really notice the mind chatter getting more and more. Those are really good times to watch your thoughts. And next, notice the space between your thoughts. Notice the times when you're not thinking. You might even start to say to yourself, wonder what my next thought will be. And in doing so, you can start to notice those gaps widen where you're not necessarily constantly thinking. Again, we want to come at this from a place of witnessing, noticing, not identifying with the thoughts, and not judging or resisting them. Next up, as you're doing this, bring more attention to yourself as the witnesser of your thoughts. So one way I've heard this done is in Buddhist tradition, you can think of thoughts like clouds and your mind is the sky. And so you notice thoughts arise and then pass through. Another approach I love is Michael Singer's approach, where he has the inner roommate technique, where he says, envision yourself outside of yourself, and then simply watch. Watch this person as they chitter chatter about all of these things that they're upset about, that they're happy about, that they're worried about. Watch that person with a sense of understanding that you are not those thoughts. You're not even that person, but that might be for future videos. Watch those thoughts, bring awareness to the thoughts, bring awareness to the witnesser of the thoughts. And then finally, the last exercise that you can do that will help you break free from the constant mental chatter and begin to get more present is to use your awareness. So become very aware of the now, become very aware of what you're doing in this moment and what you're sensing and perceiving in this moment. So as I look around, I can see all kinds of different things in my office. I can hear the hum of the air conditioner and a little bit of traffic, my seat squeaking a little bit. I can't really smell anything myself. I have a very bad sense of smell, oddly. I can taste a little bit of a metallic flavor in my mouth. I can feel myself resting on my chair. I feel a little bit of tension in my back as I continue to recover from this car accident that I had a few months ago. I can feel my feet on the floor. And you can take this practice, you can do it at any time in the day. And another way that you can implement it is to really bring your wholehearted focus into whatever you're doing. So if you're washing the dishes, simply pay attention to each action as you scrub the plate, as you watch the suds foam up, maybe even as you smell that dish detergent. Feel the temperature of the water. Feel your feet on the ground as you do it. And then notice what thoughts are arising. You can do that in every activity of your day. Start to bring more attention to the present moment awareness. And especially if you're noticing that you're thinking about something that happened in the past or something that might be happening in the future. I'm laughing to myself even as I say this because I have an HOA meeting to go to after I create this video. So I've really enjoyed bringing my presence back to conversing with you, to chatting about this book, and letting my thoughts of the not super fun HOA meeting that I'm committed to going to, letting that be in the future and letting go of that, being present in this moment with you and with my felt oneness with this moment right here. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this first video, these top takeaways from Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, Chapter 1. We discussed the future state that we are going for, enlightenment, which can be brought into every person's practical day-to-day experience, your felt oneness with being, that which is beyond name and form, that which is beyond who you are and yet so much a part of you. You can access that. We all can. We talked a little bit about what's in the way of that, the compulsive mind, these thoughts that pull us into the past, the future, that cause us to constantly be thinking about what's wrong right now. And we talked about how we can begin to let that go, how we can begin to quiet the mind, to allow ourselves the opportunity to pick it up as a tool when we need it and set it down when we don't. And a few simple practices to do that. One, noticing the thoughts and even the gap between thoughts as they arise without identifying, resisting, or judging them. Two, noticing the awareness beyond the thoughts, who you are, the witness that is aware of the thoughts, bringing presence to that. And three, bringing your full focused attention into whatever you're doing in this moment, fully noticing what you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, fully noticing the actions that you are partaking in without being concerned about the results of the future. And I invite you to take time to dwell with some of these concepts. Maybe take out your journal and start to think about different ways that you find yourself doing exactly what he says, being too obsessed with the past, the future, what's wrong. And start to think, what would it feel like if you had that opportunity to simply be, to be present, to be fulfilled, to allow your mind to be at rest, knowing that it's there for you to pick it up when you need it, when you need to think and learn from the past or have practical goals for the future. Your mind is there, but you don't need to be addicted to it. So I'm so pleased to have you join me for this first video. I can't wait for our first session of the Soul Guided Book Club. You matter. You are here because you felt called to bring this next level of being into your life, and I cannot wait to share it with you. My name is Nicole Bell. I'm the creator of the Somatic Insight Method, and now the creator of the Soul Guided Book Club, and I will see you in our next video.